Hello, family and friends. It is week 4, and we have just completed recovery week. This is the road to Busselton. Certainly, recovery week doesn't mean easy week, as I found out. At the start of the week, knowing coming off 2 hours of running on Sunday, when we had Saturday with a 3-hour ride and an hour and a half off, running off, that was certainly a big ask. And I didn't have a session on Monday, so I had a stretch and recovery session, which I absolutely needed. The body had a lot of fatigue in it, as expected, and I was certainly quite tight, largely wrecked. So certainly I was very pleased that it was recovery week. So I guess I'll mention it briefly now. The game has changed. You might remember I was talking about a work project. Well, it started on last Thursday. And what that means is I'll be doing roughly around 12-hour shifts, and I mean not 10 and change, not 11 and change, but around 12 and possibly more each day. So yeah, it goes day into night properly in those sorts of hours. Now we're living in a facility, so there's no going home, therefore no commuting. So while you get time off, which you would use commuting, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have extra time, but it does mean that you should get some recovery from no riding. All right, so let's get into my set list. How am I feeling? Well, I would say at the moment probably about an 8 out of 10. So in that case, it was a bit of a successful recovery week. Feeling pretty okay, and I've certainly got better as the week went on. Training distances now. So the swim was 6.2k. That's obviously down. Now I will mention this a bit later, but should have been more. We'll talk about that later. Now, obviously, commuting ceased during the week just gone. So the total riding was 222 kilometres and the run was 25. So that's probably about right for recovery week, but maybe around 30 and change, but 25 is what it was. So my weight, I'd say more consistently, it did vary from anywhere from 80 to 81 to 83. So I would say probably more consistently 83 through the week. Things that I had learnt through the training. Certainly with the game changing, now it is only for roughly 2 weeks while we get this project finished at work. So you need to be respecting your sleep quantity. And obviously in my situation, that's very predictable. You should be able to work it out as the game changes, and of course your sleep quality. Now, things like your sleeping window, you should be thinking, well, what's the least amount that you're prepared to accept if you're going to train? And for me, the least and lower end is 5 to 6 hours. If it's going to be less than that, you really need to be careful and even consider not training the next day, even though that would be not cool. That's definitely something you should give consideration to. Quality of sleep has to do with things like noise, interruptions, soreness, hydration, because even if you're getting more quantity, if your quality is low, that will have consequences. So you should be thinking about the next day's sessions and demands, and of course work related as well, should that be demanding mentally or physically. You need to have a master's athlete mindset. If you're not a young person, I'm not a young person anymore, so certainly need to be having those things into consideration. All right, next, injuries and niggles. So we actually did have something in this category, a few things. I did notice that my right calf was a little tight earlier in the week, so I think that's a little bit of consequential of the load, the training load, but also a bit of hydration. Now that seems to be gone and eased up as the week went on, so I'm very happy with that. It hasn't stuck around. Now the other item is more concerning, and that is a little bit of feelings of Achilles tendonitis. Now that's a heel condition. So you've got two running type overuse injuries. One of them is Achilles tendonitis, and the other one is plantar fascia. Now, you don't want the plantar. You don't want either, but certainly if you're going to choose the two, you pick the Achilles one. But you can't ignore it and pretend it's not there, so you do need to do something about it. Take actually not just something, a few things into consideration, and that's doing appropriate stretching. Of course, good form when you are working out and doing your sessions, but also doing the sorts of exercises. And that's a lot like calf raises, but of course, doing it on the floor, not going below zero. And that's in a controlled manner. And that does work very well, and that's what has taken me away from that condition worsening. So I did notice it on my run on Thursday, and what if you've had that, you'll know that it's about 10 minutes worth roughly, and then it goes away. So don't think that just because it goes away that it's not there and it's not something to pay attention to, because it absolutely is. So I will be looking for times to do the stretching, and of course those calf raise standing type exercises. Now that's all in the injuries and niggles area. Yes, sorry, I better mention, in my elevation run, which is where I'm running up and over an overpass, I did the run, and on this occasion it was only an hour, being recovery week, and I wore a pair of socks which on the heel were quite worn, and it's worn away a little bit of skin there. So I've got a little bit of blistering on both heels, worse on the right. But yeah, that was me trying to use equipment and past its date. So those socks no longer are in service and they're in the bin. So I'm still paying for that, but it's getting better. But I definitely need to be aware of it, otherwise you won't be running if you're blistering the skin wearing it off your heels. Achievements and failures. Okay, so got a few failures here. So perhaps you can decide whether this is a failure or an achievement, but due to work hours, my session on Saturday, I had to cut it from 4 hours riding to 3 hours. Now, my sleep was approximately 5 hours, whereby I mentioned earlier that if you know what your lower amount of sleep is and you're going to be at the lower end, then you need to make some good decisions about what you're going to do the next day, if at all. So I changed the session from 4 hours to 3, as mentioned. And the difference is I didn't ride on the road, I rode on the trainer. Now, most people would agree that 3 hours on the trainer is absolutely the equivalent to 4 or more hours out on the road, because on the trainer you've got constant resistance. And the run, I changed it from 2 hours to 1 hour. So seriously, I chose to not train those 2 extra hours due to my sleep being significantly reduced on that night. So it was a good compromise, and I think I made a good decision there. Now, another failure and making a decision was because I was heavily fatigued on Monday. My shift on Monday night, I was actually into bed at around 11:45 p.m. And I think when I put my alarm, and I did wake up, it was about 4 hours sleep. Now, it was incredibly mental situation. On one hand, I'm thinking, well, here's a chance to get absolute legend status in going to the session. And if I was able to complete it, that would have been a huge achievement. However, I would have probably endangered myself, maybe crashed my bike, maybe crashed other people's bike, maybe hurt others and myself, and no more training for a while. So it was a lot of mental dialogue, and I decided not to do the group ride, knowing, of course, that because we're on location with work, there will not be any Group 2 rides for the next 2 weeks. I'll miss 3 of those. That's not cool, but it is what it is. You need to make the best out of your situation. So I did a trainer session, which I made up myself, and I was pretty happy with how that went, and the coach was happy as well. Now, unfortunately, because of where we are, the pool doesn't open on a Sunday as early as I need. So unfortunately today missed the swim session, which is why we had 6.2k instead of 9.2k. So absolutely not cool, but we move on. So this recovery week, no pure real achievements, but certainly some areas where I had to make some good decisions to not only not get injured or ill, but I guess hurt others. And I think that's always good to be on the side of care and caution. Recognise the signs. So equipment and maintenance, better throw those socks in that I told you about. Went through those. Very happy that with my race bike, which has been doing a lot of work lately on the trainer and on the road, I was able to give the chain and the complete drivetrain a full clean and lubrication. And yes, first session on the trainer, which was Saturday morning, it was feeling excellent. So I'm very happy with that. Pardon me, I also spoke about my rear tubular spare attachment. I've had a good look at that, and I've got some ideas to test after the work project's over when I get back out on the road. And I also charged up some front and rear lights, so very happy with that. So I've got those things in order. All right, let's move on. The week ahead. Now, bearing in mind the game has changed, there will be no commuting because we're on location, and it's just walk to your room. Off to your bathroom, shower, and get into bed. Repeat the next day for the next 2 weeks. So we're working 7 days for this project to get it done in time. So there'll be likely to be somewhat shorter sessions for the next 2 weeks. Saturday, we'll be making a decision similar to last week, yesterday, whereby need to look at what sleep I'm going to get, and of course it might be the same 3-hour ride and 1-hour run. There will be no group rides, like I said, so that big challenge will be off for a little while, so good time to prepare when I come back to it to make sure I can still cut it. The challenge for the week ahead will be not only as urgently getting to bed as possible, but also having my equipment, fuel and hydration every single day in order, because when those minutes disappear, they don't come back, as you know. So we're 4 weeks in. I think everything's in the right direction. It's just about making smart decisions. You don't win or lose your race in 1 or 2 or 3 weeks where you don't get to do exactly what you want. Let's see how we go. This is week 5 will be build week, so week 1 of the next build, I'll talk with you then. Thanks for watching.